Let's start it off with a legal question for Cora Henderson over at Pitt and Frank LLC. Steve is writing in. I'm looking at a house tomorrow, Monday, that is in a flood zone and requires flood insurance. And Cora, he's asking in this email, is there any way to see the history of flooding for a house or a neighborhood? He says, I have no clue if it has to be disclosed or not by a seller or buyer agent or by the seller. Cora.
Happy to help with that, Steve. And that's a great question and a legitimate concern. I think it's always important to do research on the home before you buy it. So regarding the frequency of any flooding, certainly the seller should disclose that information. So whether or not that's already been disclosed on the standard seller's disclosure, you can always have yourself or your agent make that request to have more history or understanding on what the seller's experience has been regarding the flooding of the property. It may be likely, it may be unlikely. Also, there are certain third-party resources and websites that you can look at and to see whether or not it's a rare kind of a rare determination or maybe a newer determination that it's in the flood zone. You know, MSD will frequently kind of redo some of those flood zone areas. And, you know, some of them seem obvious. Yeah, the home abuts the Ohio River. Okay, I'm guessing that the flood opportunities are dependent upon, you know, the levels of the Ohio River. And then some of it may be a little bit harder to determine. Maybe there's a creek and maybe it's not close at all to the property, but given the right rainstorms or flooding, it could give rise and flood into your property, which makes it therefore in the flood zone. So really, I think not only the frequency, but getting an understanding of what body of water or what circumstances makes it be in the flood zone. Is it the topo levels? Like, is it something where it's just really down in a valley and makes itself so ripe for flooding? Also, you can engage a surveyor and they may be able to have certain knowledge to even get you out of that flood zone determination, at least for requirements of flood insurance for financing. We can have what's called a seeking of a LOMA letter after an elevation certificate is obtained. That way you can determine again whether or not the home is up on a hill that it would be somewhat free from those flooding opportunities. So there's a number of different ways that you can do research, all of which are important. And remember, when you think about flood insurance, and this is important, when you're a cash buyer, of course, that's your decision whether or not you want to have flood insurance, just like homeowners insurance. It's probably a good idea, particularly if you are more in more of a threatened position to experience those flooding or other disasters. But if you're in a financed transaction, that lender will require you to have flood insurance. And that is to protect their interest in the property. Because if it were to be damaged by a flood, then suddenly the collateral they've used to loan the money isn't as valuable as it was before. For the same premise is why they require homeowners insurance. So again, depending on how you're purchasing the property, you may or may not be required to even purchase flood insurance. Lastly, flood insurance is a government program. So that's important to understand too.
And we should point out that an inspection from, say, Home Team Inspection could determine if flooding in that area and that home has and could be a problem in the future, right? On that, Brad?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know about future, but certainly we would have record, we would be able to pick up, any damage, any watermarks from past flooding.
Okay. And that's what you want to know, what the history has been. I guess you're right. You can't tell future, but you can at least see what the past has been.
Right.